You think people who grew up with everything understand responsibility? Wait until you hear this story. The clerk calls a name, and the murmur in the municipal courtroom dips. Another traffic matter, another ticket. On paper, it's routine. Then she walks in, early 30s, plain blazer, fitted dress, heels that mark each step. Not flashy, just obviously expensive. Her shoulders are square, chin slightly lifted, the posture of someone used to side doors and private elevators. Her phone is in her hand, like a remote control to a different life. She doesn't glance at the judge, doesn't check the benches the way most people do. She goes straight to the clerk's desk and lets a small stack of papers fall onto the counter. Not handed, dropped, like keys for a valet. She keeps scrolling. From the second row, a whisper. That's her, the owner's sister. The file is simple, a citation for parking in a disabled space beside the main entrance to a high-end mall on the east side. The same mall her brother owns. To most people here, it's just another rich family's name. Still, something in her manner pricks. Not only confidence, but the quiet belief that none of this really applies to her. The judge adjusts his glasses, eyes on the paperwork. Ma'am, you're here for... She cuts in without looking up. Let's make it quick, okay? I have a meeting in 30 minutes. The room tightens. People who've missed work to sit on these benches shift in their seats. They've all waited their turn. She sounds as if she's doing the court a favor by being here at all. The judge lets a small silence fall. No raised voice, no sharp gesture, just a longer look over the rim of his glasses. He's seen anger, worry, embarrassment. This is different. This is distance. He leans toward the microphone. For the record, do you have a permit to park in that space? She exhales, impatient. I park there all the time. If there's an issue, talk to the manager. It lands in the air like an order, not an answer. In the front row, an older man lowers his eyes. His hands close around the wooden armrests. He doesn't speak. Not yet. But his jaw tightens, as if the citation brushes against something personal. The judge turns back to the file, slides out a photograph, studies it for a moment. Then he lifts it so the room can see. A polished SUV sits across the paint, not only in the marked space, but squarely over the concrete ramp. The path for wheelchairs ends at her rear bumper. This your car, ma'am? She gives it the quickest glance. Looks like it. No flinch. The judge sets the photo apart from the rest. Ma'am, he says evenly, this doesn't look like just a ticket. It looks like something else. She rolls her eyes as if he's wasting her time. The room goes quiet. She lifts her chin a fraction when the judge reads her full name into the record. Not much, just enough to reveal the tension beneath the polished exterior. People recognize the surname. It hangs in the air like a brand label. Her brother built the mall that dominates the east side. A family business passed down from their parents, expanded, refurbished, turned into a local landmark. He's the face of it. Charity galas, ribbon cuttings, interviews. She operates in the background, the one who handles things. Vendors know her. Security knows her. City officials certainly know her. Folks say that when a problem needs to disappear, she's the one who calls. And people listen. Yet lately, that certainty has been cracking. A few months back, the mall drew criticism after a safety violation made headlines. A fire door jammed during an inspection. The whole issue mysteriously dissolved before the week ended. Anyone who read between the lines knew someone had pulled strings. And her name floated around local talk radio for days. Never proven, never confronted, but whispered. She hasn't forgotten it. That's why she sits with her shoulders coiled, pretending she's bored while keeping an invisible shield up, hoping no one mentions anything beyond this ticket. The judge studies her, then asks plainly, "Tell me what brought you to that spot that day." She tilts her head, rehearsed calm. "I was helping someone inside. It wasn't a long stop." But the judge already has the footage. A short clip from mall security. She steps out of the SUV, smooths her jacket, and walks straight to the cafe near the entrance. 5 minutes later, she emerges with a cup in one hand and a shopping bag in the other. The judge taps the file. "Ma'am, the report here notes you entered a coffee shop." She blinks once. "That's irrelevant." From the second row, the older man's fingers grip harder. His eyes stay down, but he listens. The judge continues. "Are you aware that the ramp you blocked is the only accessible entry for clients of the rehabilitation center nearby?" A small pause follows, the kind that fills a room. She doesn't answer at first. Then, with a breath that sounds more annoyed than reflective, "Not my problem." Someone in the gallery exhales sharply. Another turns away, shaking their head. These are people who've pushed relatives in wheelchairs, who've navigated tight sidewalks and steep curbs. Her indifference slices through the room. The older man finally lifts his face. His expression carries years. Not anger, but something quieter, heavier. He doesn't speak, but the way he straightens suggests he's tied to that ramp, to that day, more than anyone here realizes. The judge's tone shifts, softer but firmer. "Your family's influence doesn't have jurisdiction here," he says. "This courtroom answers to the law, not to local power." Her jaw tenses, the first real crack. She isn't used to being spoken to without deference. The judge closes the folder with a measured motion, leaving the echo of his statement lingering in the room. For the first time since she entered, she doesn't look at her phone. She stares ahead, rigid, bracing, uncertain whether he's just posturing or preparing to dig much deeper than she expected. When the judge reopens the folder, the rustle of paper sounds louder than it should. The room settles. Even the fluorescent lights seem to hum more quietly. Something has shifted. She senses it. The confidence she wore like perfume begins to thin. The judge scans the statement she submitted earlier, the one in which she claimed she'd rushed inside because her mother wasn't feeling well. He reads it with no judgment, no raised brow, just steady attention. Then he places the page beside another document and speaks calmly. "Your account doesn't match the security report." A short clip plays on the monitor. She steps from her SUV, checks her reflection in the window, and heads toward the jewelry store. No sign of urgency, no phone call, no trace of concern. A ripple sweeps the gallery, not loud, just a collective intake of breath. She stiffens. Before the judge can ask his next question, the older man in the front row rises, slowly, using the bench for balance. He isn't dramatic. In fact, the quietness of the gesture draws more attention than a raised voice ever could. "Judge," he says, his tone steady, "that ramp she blocked. I needed it that day." Every head turns. She finally looks at him, not apologetic, not alarmed, just mildly irritated, as if his interruption inconveniences her far more than whatever happened to him. The judge nods for him to continue. "I've had 2 surgeries on my back," the man says. "I was supposed to use that ramp. It's the only way I can get into the center without help. When I saw her car there, I tried the steps, thought I could manage." He pauses, adjusting his stance. "I didn't." No embellishment, no trembling voice. Just a plain fact delivered the way many older Americans speak about pain. Directly, without seeking sympathy. She crosses her arms, hiding the small twitch in her fingers. The judge leans in. "Sir, did you report that fall?" The man shakes his head. "No, I didn't want trouble. I just went home and rested," but he glances at her, then back to the judge. "When I saw her name on today's docket, I figured maybe it was time someone said something." That hits the room harder than any accusation. People know what it means to let things pass, to avoid conflict, to live quietly, until someone finally pushes too far. The judge turns to her. "Is what he's describing accurate? Did you block the ramp he needed?" She doesn't hesitate. "Well, accidents happen." The words land with a thud. Someone in the back mutters under their breath. A woman near the aisle shakes her head slowly. Even the clerk looks down, uncomfortable. The judge closes the file with deliberate care, as if the motion itself sets a boundary between what this case was and what it has become. "Ma'am," he says, voice low, "we're no longer talking about a parking ticket." For the first time, her face loses its practiced indifference. There's a flicker, not guilt, not humility, but the dawning realization that the ground beneath her is no longer one she controls. A brief silence hangs in the air, and the scene cuts on that uneasy stillness. The courtroom holds a strange stillness now, not tense, not chaotic, but expectant. As if everyone feels the judge is about to open a door no one realized was there. She straightens in her chair, trying to restore the posture she walked in with. But the effort shows. Her fingers tighten around her phone, then loosen, as though she can't decide whether to hold onto it or hide it. The judge reaches for a thin envelope the clerk slid to him moments earlier. "This arrived right before the session," he says. "A supplemental report from mall security." That draws attention immediately. Late arriving documents rarely mean good news. He unfolds the report slowly, giving her time to react. She sits motionless, though a faint pulse jumps along her jawline. "According to this," the judge begins, "your vehicle has blocked that ramp more than once." He reads without raising his voice, letting each line stand on its own. "Security personnel noted that they were instructed not to intervene when your SUV was parked in restricted areas." A slight pause. "That instruction came from your brother." A murmur stirs in the gallery. Not outrage, recognition. Most people here have lived long enough to know how influence works in small cities. The judge continues. "One guard states he felt the practice was unsafe, but feared disciplinary action if he questioned it." She shifts at that, not from guilt, from the shock of hearing something spoken out loud that was supposed to remain unspoken. But the judge isn't finished. He lifts a second document, still part of the same report. "There's additional camera footage from that day," he says. The screen lights up. Her SUV pulls in, stops directly across the ramp. She exits. Then another door opens. A young man steps out, adjusts his badge lanyard, and follows her toward the service hallway. The room reacts softly. Curious glances, raised brows. Nothing crude or gossipy, just the unmistakable sense that this complicates her version of events. The judge looks at her. "Who accompanied you?" Her reply is sharp, immediate. "That's none of your business," which of course only deepens the interest. The judge lays the footage aside. "Ma'am, this individual is listed in the report as an assistant manager at your family's mall. His involvement may be relevant." "It isn't," she snaps back, but the tension in her voice betrays the strain of holding the line. The judge lets her silence fill the space before picking up the final page. This part concerns the gentleman who testified earlier. He glances at the veteran. The video of his fall was recorded by an internal camera. According to this report, that file was removed from the system shortly after the incident. He turns back to her. "Do you know who ordered that?" Her lips part slightly, the first sign that her composure is slipping. "I didn't tell anyone to hide anything." The judge nods once, not accusing, not accepting, just acknowledging the statement. "Maybe not, but someone did, and that someone acted to protect you." A low hum travels through the courtroom, not dramatic, but charged with the feeling that a line has been crossed from simple negligence into the territory of choices, decisions, and consequences. She swallows hard, the sound barely audible but unmistakable in the quiet. For the first time, she looks unsure of where this is headed, or how much further the judge intends to go. The scene ends on her unsteady breath, hanging in a silence thick with the weight of everything that can no longer be brushed aside. The judge doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't lean forward or sharpen his tone. What changes is subtler, a shift from legal formality to something more human, more weighted. It quiets the room in a way no gavel ever could. "Ma'am," he says, "this city grants everyone the same protection under the law. Your choices interfered with that protection." She keeps her gaze fixed on the table, shoulders rigid. The cool, detached confidence she carried in has drained away. She isn't defeated, not yet, but she's cornered by something she didn't anticipate. Clarity. The judge turns slightly toward the older man. "Sir," he says, "what happened to you that day should not happen to anyone within these walls or outside them." The veteran nods once. His hands, still resting on the bench in front of him, are steady. "I'm not here to punish her," he says. "I just want her to remember that folks like me are out there, trying to get through the day same as anybody." His voice isn't trembling. It isn't emotional. It's simply true. And that truth lands harder than accusation. The courtroom absorbs the moment. No side conversations, no shuffling feet. Even she looks up, caught off guard by the lack of hostility. It's the veteran's restraint that breaks something open. She exhales, not dramatically, but like someone who's been holding tension for years. "I didn't know someone got hurt," she says quietly. There's no plea in her tone, no attempt to shape sympathy. Just a fact she has suddenly allowed herself to acknowledge. The judge studies her for several seconds, weighing the transformation, not trusting it blindly, but recognizing that even the smallest admission matters. "You grew up," he says, "with doors that opened before you ever touched them. Maybe that taught you that rules were background noise. But rules exist for one purpose: to guard the people you don't notice, the ones who can't push past a blocked ramp, the ones who live with limits you've never had to imagine." His words aren't harsh. They're steady, almost gentle, yet they cut deeper than any reprimand. She looks at him without blinking, as if hearing something she hasn't heard from anyone in a very long time. The judge continues, "A fine alone won't teach the lesson this case carries. You need to see the people on the other side of your decisions." He announces the ruling: a monetary penalty, a mandated set of community service hours at the local rehabilitation center, the one that depends on the very ramp she obstructed, and a meeting with the accessibility coordinator to understand the daily barriers faced by those who rely on that path. The gallery absorbs the decision with a collective breath. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just agreement, a sense that the punishment fits the harm without seeking to humiliate. The judge looks at her. "Can you fulfill these requirements?" Her response is small, but unmistakably real. "I'll do it." No entitlement, no eye roll, just acceptance. The room relaxes, almost imperceptibly, shoulders dropping, heads lifting. It's not relief, not quite. It's something closer to respect for a justice that doesn't crush, but redirects. She sits there a moment longer after speaking, hands folded, the last remnants of her old posture fading. And for the first time since she entered the courtroom, she looks present, not above the process, not outside it, but inside it with the rest of them. When the judge closes the file, the soft click of the binder feels final. No one moves right away. It's as if the whole room takes a moment to recalibrate after everything that has unfolded. She stands, but not with the brisk certainty she carried earlier. There's a pause, brief, uncertain, as though she's adjusting to a world that suddenly feels unfamiliar. Her eyes drift toward the exit, then back to the benches, as if she isn't sure whether to walk out quickly or let the moment settle. The veteran rises slowly, bracing one hand on the bench. She hesitates, then steps toward him. There's no dramatic apology, no sudden collapse of pride. Just a quiet sentence, spoken low enough that only he and those nearest can hear. "I didn't mean to make your day harder." He studies her for a moment, not to judge, but to measure whether the words are sincere. Then he gives a slight nod. "Just don't make it harder for the next guy," he says. It's a simple line, but it hangs in the air like something larger, A truth you don't argue with, a truth earned through lived hardship. She absorbs it without flinching, and something in her posture softens. Not an apology, not a transformation. A beginning. Behind them, someone exhales softly. Another shifts forward, as if approving without wanting to be obvious about it. There are no claps, no murmured praise, just a quiet recognition that something right has occurred. Justice without spectacle, correction without humiliation. She steps back, nods to the veteran, then finally turns toward the aisle. Her stride is different now, not hesitant but aware. Awareness alone is a kind of change. The judge watches her reach the door. He speaks almost to himself, though his voice carries enough to reach the gallery. Power doesn't make you stronger. How you treat people does. The clerk organizes the next case. Papers shuffle, someone coughs. Life resumes in its usual rhythm, but the words linger, like dust motes holding to a sunbeam. Just before she steps through the doorway, a voice from the clerk's desk calls out, "Judge, the rehab center left a message for her. They said they're ready whenever she is." The judge answers without looking up. "Good. Let's hope she shows up." The door opens with a soft hinge, then closes behind her. For a beat, the room stays still. And then the narrator's voice enters, measured and reflective. Maybe she didn't change her whole life that day. Most people don't. But sometimes one small step, the kind that nudges you out of your own shadow, is enough to remember the world wasn't built just for you. A quiet fade. End.